Hello everybody, welcome to Midweek Encouragement. Thank you for joining in tonight. It's great to be with you. Thank you for tuning in and making this an important part of your week. It is such an honor and a privilege to be together like this. I'm excited about where we are and what we're doing, where we're going. Some great things that we're looking into tonight. I am warning you ahead of time. We are in Luke chapter 10, and we've read verses 1 through 9. I'm going to read them again here, and you can read along with me if you will. Make sure you've got your Bible and your notepad or whatever you take notes with, so you can take notes, ask questions. Please, I love questions. Please give me questions. At any rate, there's some things here that I feel like I need to and should at least unpack for you. I'm not likely to get through what I want to say tonight, and so I'm just giving you a warning ahead of time. We're going to talk through some things here that's being said, and I think there's some key things here, some information that is going to be very helpful to all of us for understanding how we are to respond as people of the kingdom, disciple makers. So all of that's really, really important. And so we're going to do all of that. Just warning you that while we're going to read Luke 10, 1 through 9, probably not going to get through all of that tonight. We're probably going to have to work on more of it next week. And we'll talk about why all that is as we're going forward here. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get started with this by reading Luke chapter 10, verses 1 through 9. So if you will, read along with me. After these things, the Lord appointed 70 others also, and sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself was about to go. Then he said to them, "The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Go your way. Behold, I send you out as lambs among wolves. Carry neither money bag, knapsack, nor sandals, and greet no one along the road. But whatsoever house you enter, first say, Peace to this house. And if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on it. If not, it will return to you. And remain in the same house, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the laborer is worthy of his wages. Do not go from house to house. Whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you, and heal the sick there, and say to them, the kingdom of God has come near to you." There's a lot here, and I want to try to work through this. We've got through last week, and if you'd like to go in the archives, if you didn't watch last week, perhaps you should, you look into that, and we've kind of worked through these scriptures until we get to the line that says, "Carry neither money bag, knapsack, nor sandals, and greet no one along the road." So for everything prior to that, that was last week. From here forward, let's see how much we can get done this week, and we'll continue and work on it next week as well. We've got time, right? We don't have to be in a big hurry. We want to unpack these things. We want to try to glean as much as we can from what Jesus is teaching. So, carry neither money bag, knapsack, nor sandals, greet no one along the road. None of the disciples that we read about ever did this continually, all day, every day, all year, every day. No, in other words, this mission Jesus is sending them on is a specific mission trip, and these are instructions for this specific mission trip. So this is it's for a certain season, a time, a specific reason here. But the mission trip model, if you want to call it that, is not something that is sustainable in perpetuity. You can't just keep doing this all the time. Now, we don't know how long these mission trips were. And there were a couple of them. This is the second one we've been aware of. The first one had the 12. This has the 70. The first one had 6 groups of 2. This is going to have 35 groups of 2. How long did it last? We don't know. The best guess we can come up with, looking at all the circumstances, suggests that this trip, this particular trip, was probably somewhere between 1 to 3 months. So 4 to 12 weeks, and maybe more like 4 to 6 weeks all told. It's difficult to ascertain given the information that we have. But it brings a question that I think we need to ask, and it's this: how long does it take to win someone to the Lord? How long does it take for someone to come into the kingdom? When Paul, the Apostle Paul, went to Thessalonica, he was only there about 9 days. 9 days. That's a little more than a week before he was finally thrown out of town. You can't build a church in a town you've been thrown out of. I'm just saying, if you get thrown out, your direct work is done. And still, when he writes a letter to Thessalonica, he addresses it to the church in Thessalonica. How long does it take to win someone to the Lord? I mean, if you want to go and get a building set up and a keyboard and a sound system and lights and chairs and all the trappings that we think need to be in a church setting, I suppose, it might take quite some time to get the kind of financing and the support together to do something along that line. But is that what we're trying to do? Are we trying to pull together a building and all the accoutrements of what it means to have a building? Because if you're just after a building, anybody can go rent a building, buy chairs, put up a sound system, buy some lights, and do whatever, right? I don't see any of that in the New Testament. It's not there, because the emphasis here in Jesus' ministry and beyond was the fact that we ought to be building kingdom. Not our kingdom, His kingdom. It's about the kingdom of God and not a kingdom on this earth. His kingdom come, not my kingdom come. Our words and actions should be advancing the kingdom, as you see right here. So here the beginning instructions go, right? Kingdom building, mission trip. Don't carry a money bag. Don't carry a knapsack. Don't carry sandals. Don't greet anybody on the road. Now, let's look at this. I really don't think they were going barefoot from city to city, okay? But they were certainly not to carry an extra pair of sandals with them. That's what it seems to me to read here. So you don't carry extra shoes. For some of you, that might be tragic. I understand. But in this case, you got shoes on your feet. That's all you get. Don't carry any extra shoes. They weren't to carry a suitcase. Don't carry a wallet. Don't carry a suitcase. Don't carry any extra shoes. So what are we gleaning here? Well, we're understanding that they're not going to be transacting any business where they're going. They're not going to these places to buy anything for themselves. They're not going to tour and to buy souvenirs and trinkets and whatever. They're not going in a way that is prepared, or they are prepared in a way that they are prepared to stay for any length of time to stay. In other words, they're going unprepared in many ways. They're going from city to city, and they're not self-supporting. That's what we're gathering here. How about that for a missions program? Go. Oh, by the way, don't take any money. Don't take a suitcase. Don't take any extra shoes. Don't take anything that's going to support yourself. You are going, and we want you to be dependent upon everybody that you're going to talk to. Yeah, I wonder how that would work out. I've never seen anything like that quite that way anyway. Everything I have seen suggests that when you go on a missions trip that you are supposed to go prepared. You've got supporters that help you take care of your expenses. You've got some money. You've got clothes. You're ready to go and support yourself. And you're doing that so that you're not a burden on the current or any of residing missionaries or any of the people that you're trying to help. You're going there to try to be self-sufficient and not be dependent upon any of those people. And yet, that is not how Jesus is sending out the 70. He's not doing that. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting anything in this, okay? It's just an observation. Because sometimes we think things have to be a certain way, and so we say, well, did Jesus do it that way? Do you really need all of this stuff? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? Well, I'm not proposing an answer to those questions so much, and I'm not saying, hear me, I'm not saying it's wrong to go on some mission trip and be prepared for it. I have done them. I have generally been as prepared as I know how to be when I go. My question is why? I'm only asking why. Why does it have to be this way and not that way? Is this way really necessary? Are we required? Should we, of necessity and every time, make sure that everything is prepared well in advance? I'm not suggesting I even have an answer. I'm really just asking a question, and maybe it's something you want to put in the comments or maybe answer from your own perspective. Do we have to do things the same way every time? Do we have to do things exactly the way Jesus did it every time? Or is there a difference in application with the times? Is the first century versus 21st century? Let's move forward from there. Jesus is sending the 70, 35 teams of 2 away without any way to support themselves. If you are otherwise prepared, you don't have to depend on anybody else, right? You go with all the things that you need. You're not depending on anybody. You're prepared. You've got extra clothes. You've got shoes and toiletries. If there is some delay somewhere on your trip, then you can still take care of your personal needs should you have the need to do so. Something arises that is out of the plan, that violates or terminates an itinerary. You've got some means of support. Well, maybe for the 70, it's not quite to that extent, right? But it certainly suggests this kind of thing for us. In any case, Jesus is sending them out and specifically not allowing them to depend on self. They were not self-sufficient. They were dependent entirely. Now, this is different. The more we study the Gospels, the more we find that Jesus did a lot of things different. Different was kind of normal for Jesus. So all of this is different. It's even different in the first century. Jesus also told them, don't greet anybody along the road. What's that all about? Huh? Now you're going somewhere, don't talk to anybody. Wait a minute, what? Well, how about this? If you say you were working on a project and you were using a circular saw or a table saw, and you accidentally cut your finger or a piece of your finger off with a saw. I know that's sick, it's gross, it's terrible. I'm going to get a little more graphic, so just hang in there with me. You would want to try to find that severed digit as soon as possible and hurry as quickly as possible to the emergency room and see if you couldn't get that finger reattached. Because in our day and age, you could do that. If conditions are correct and everything is okay, sometimes they can reattach something like that was indeed cut off. Anyway, so you're going to the emergency room to see if you can get that finger attached. And so on your way, maybe you see somebody you haven't seen for a while. And do you stop and have a conversation and catch up a little bit? I mean, do you stop and say, hey, what's going on? I cut my finger off and we're on our way to the emergency room but man, how you doing? How's things going? How's the wife, the kids? How's the job? Do we do that? I think that's a hard no. At least from my perspective. No, I don't do that. Why? Because there is urgency in where I'm going. I'm going to the emergency room and I'm going to get there as fast as possible. If I see somebody, I'm not going to stop and catch up. I'm going to get to the emergency room. We can catch up later, right? I'm not doing that. There's urgency in getting to this emergency room and getting the potential for things to get put back together as fast as possible. And it doesn't matter who you see along the way. You just don't have time to stop and chat. No, you have to go. And you have to go now. You've got a mission to accomplish. You've got things that have to be done. I'm treading on territory here. Just understand, you might not even come to a complete stop at a red traffic light. You want to be careful. You don't want to get T-boned on the way, but you don't have time. You don't have time. You're on a mission. And I think in saying don't talk to anybody on the road, Jesus is giving a sense of urgency in the mission. You don't have time to pack. You don't have time to stop along the way and visit with people. You don't have time to gather anything. You're on a mission and the mission is now and you've got to go and get there. All right, so there's urgency in the mission. We get that. And on this mission, there's only one type of person that you're going to be looking for. Now, be aware of your surroundings. You want to be careful. Because the kind of person you're looking for is not someone who's lonely. Okay? You're not looking for lonely people. You're looking for hungry people. You're not looking for lonely people. Be careful because it's easy to mistake lonely people for hungry people. See, some people will want you to come and study the Bible with them because they just want some company. They're lonely and they're not really interested in learning anything. They just want some human interaction and company. And I'm here to tell you, as one who has experienced this phenomena, lonely people will drain you. And they just will not make a commitment or even move toward the kingdom. They know what they know, they believe what they believe, and they're not interested in learning or becoming a disciple. They just want somebody to be with them because they're lonely. They're not going to learn or move toward the kingdom. They don't have the right motivation. And I don't even want someone... Understand me, you who know me understand what I mean. I don't want someone who has been talked into some sort of Bible discussion. I don't want to have to deal with somebody who's been talked into this discussion. I want to talk with people that are hungry. If we have to talk you or I have to talk you into something like this, you're not hungry. You might be curious, but you're not hungry. In Matthew, we've talked about this. Jesus uses the word worthy, right? Who's worthy? What does that even mean? How are we supposed to judge whether someone is worthy or not? And we've talked about this quite some time back. Apparently, and we did because not only, well, particularly when he sent the 12 out, but apparently Jesus assumed that by singling out those who are worthy, that then means that some were worthy and some were not worthy. And in verses 5 and 6 of Luke 10 here, we just read it, he's giving instructions as to how to determine whether or not one was worthy. He says, whatever house you enter, first say, peace to this house, and if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on it. If not, it will return to you. Okay. We're talking, and we're reading this in a first century Jewish context. Keep that in mind. It's a cultural thing. It's a Jewish thing. But understanding that, I think we can also come to some understandings about what that means for us and how we can apply these things, right? Do you bring peace with you when you're talking to someone about Jesus? When you're talking to someone about Jesus, are you at peace, or do you bring chaos and turmoil with you? Of course, you have to have some peace if you want to leave some peace in someone's home, right? You can't just leave something you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. That's, I think, common sense. I would hope so. So in order to have peace, then when you enter into circumstances and situations, you can't do that with fear and anxiety. You can't enter into these circumstances and talking about the Lord or the Bible or anything, and with this constant nagging thought, what if they reject me? What if something goes wrong? What if I say something I'm not supposed to say? What if I can't hear from God? What if I say the wrong thing? What if they... Whoa. Time out, for those of you who don't understand the sports analogy. Time out. You have to steel yourself. You can't enter circumstances like this. You have to be confident in your own walk with God. You have to know that Jesus is with you and that it doesn't matter what happens in those circumstances. You have to be confident and secure in your relationship with Jesus. First and foremost, that's where your peace is. You know Him. He knows you. You're confident in that. You're there. That's where your peace comes from. You can't worry about the reactions of other people. You can't be worried about being cussed out by somebody. You can't be worried about what you're going to say. You can't be worried about being rejected in some way. That's anxiety. And I'm telling you that people feel this. You can't express it in words, but they sense your spirit. And if your spirit's not at peace, they sense it. Those kind of things, that anxiety about all of these things is not peace. I'm encouraging you, go in faith and not in fear. Are you there with somebody to find fault? Are you with someone with the intention of passing some sort of harsh judgment? Did you bring peace with you, or when you're talking to someone about Jesus? Are you bringing peace, or are you bringing something else? Well, first of all, you have to have peace. So secondly, how do we bring peace? Maybe that's a good question to ask. In the first century, among the Jews, it was common for them to greet one another with the Hebrew word shalom. Shalom. It basically means, may peace be with you. Peace be with you. If you say it twice in a row, if you remember that rule, if they would say shalom, shalom, it's like saying great peace be with you. Remember that good, better, best analogy where if it's repeated, once is good, twice is better, 3 times is best, just by the repetition of the word. So, in this greeting, as in many things in Jewish culture, you have to understand that God is assumed in the greeting. So, for example, if you've read the book of Esther, you'll find, or if you're paying attention and you're looking for it, you're not going to find God mentioned in the book of Esther. Not where I've been able to see it overtly, and I mean that overtly. He's not mentioned, but he is certainly assumed to be there. Who knows but what you were chosen for such a time as this? Mordecai's message to Esther. Who's doing the choosing? How did she get chosen? Well, it's obvious in the context and in the entire circumstance that God is in the details of the story. It's not said specifically, but it is assumed. So when you mention peace, it is understood that that is something that comes from God and God alone. To bring peace on a house is to say that I am bringing God with me. So in saying this, it's also understood that I'm not bringing the judgment of God. I'm bringing the peace of God. Why do we want to bring peace? Because when a home is relaxed and at peace, they're more likely to buy into the gospel. Have you ever had the experience with that salesman? You know the one I'm talking about. He had exactly what you wanted. You were there, you were looking at it, the price was right, everything was good, but that salesperson drove you so crazy during his presentation that you just wouldn't or you couldn't buy it from this person, but rather you go somewhere, you go across town and buy it. You'd buy it online. Why? Because that salesperson annoyed you so much. You just couldn't do it. He scared you away with his presentation. Maybe you even paid a little bit more to get it somewhere else, but you just had to get away from that person. See, we don't want to be that kind of presenter with the gospel. The work of a disciple is to bring good news. It doesn't matter what you say if you are stressing everybody out in the process. If you're doing that and you're not bringing peace, you cannot convey good news. The good news presentation must match the spirit of what is being presented. I think that's a good place for us to stop tonight, and I'm not even close to being done with this segment here. So just bear with me, walk with me through this. We'll get through it, and it's going to be all right by the time we finish it. Because I want to make some comparisons between first century, 21st century, our culture, the Western culture here, and perhaps the Jewish honor-shame culture, and understand these things, because culturally there's some differences and understandings. I mean, if for instance, if we say, "May peace rest upon this house," who's going to understand that? Who's going to? I don't know. People think you're a little weird when you come up with that kind of terminology in our culture in the 21st century. Just throwing that out there for you so you understand it. I want to thank you again for being here. And for walking this pathway with us. I hope you're learning. If you're learning things, let me know. If you're picking up some good stuff, let me know. Put those good emojis down there. Share the video, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, the little bell notification so you know when we're on. If you're on Facebook, smash the like button. And in any case, make comments, share it, get the word out there. Let's build the Midweek Encouragement family and see what God can do through this little effort. So appreciate you. Thank you for coming along on this journey. And as always, until next Wednesday, I encourage you to love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Fast, pray, give generously. And now you go make a disciple.